Hello, everyone. Here's our first set of slides for the beginning of the Cold War. We're going to look at the tensions that developed between the US and the Soviet Union, and we're going to be filling out the graphic organizer on the right for this entire week. Make sure you check back into Classroom for the videos that we are going to be using to fill these notes out. By the end of the week, we should be able to answer our success criteria and be able to accurately look at how the Cold War develops. Remember, it's a horror movie. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where this tension is going to come from, but we know that something is going to happen and we don't want it to. How does that begin? Well, it begins during World War II at the Yalta Conference, where we're trying to figure out peace. Remember, at the end of World War I, we were trying to figure out a peace at Paris. That didn't turn out so good. It literally started the next war, World War II. Everything that happened at the Paris Peace Conference sets up this other war. So the United States and the British, the Allies, want to do it right this time. How do we do that right? Well, we look at Germany, first of all, but we don't make them the victims. We don't want to turn them into someone who's going to cause another war. We want to help them rebuild. How do we do that? We still make sure that they recognize they've done something wrong. So we divide them into four. We divide them into 4 zones, and each of the allies gets a zone that we help rebuild in. The Soviet Union, as you can see on the right, gets a pretty big zone of their own. They've conquered all of that territory back from the Germans that they lost. On the right side of the map, you can't see it on here, but they've taken control of all of that territory next to the red. So there's the red portion of the map here. This territory has all been taken back by the Russians too. And based on what we know about the Soviet Union, they are not a democracy, but they agree to allow democratic elections to countries freed from Axis control. Why would they do that? Well, they're a member of the Allies, and all of the other allies are democracies. So in order to make their allies happy, even though they have all that territory, they agree to allow democratic elections. But communism is all about taking control and making sure that the government is in charge. So there's a source of tension already at the Yalta conference. Another source of tension is between Yalta and the next conference, Potsdam. The US gets a replacement. The president who was there before, President Roosevelt, he carried the United States through World War II until the very end. He died at the very end of his 3rd term, and he was replaced by Harry S. Truman, who was a lot tougher on communism and the Soviet Union than Roosevelt was. Now, Roosevelt didn't like communism, but he knew that we had to have an ally on our side to defeat the Nazis. Literal Hitler was still alive, so we couldn't go after our allies even if we didn't like them. But now Hitler was gone, and Roosevelt was gone, so now we have a president who wants to make it clear he's tough on communism and doesn't want the communists to get an advantage of any kind. So at the Potsdam conference, we want to figure out how Europe is going to be rebuilt. We're still talking about Germany, but we're also focusing on the one country we have left, the one country we need to defeat, Japan. How are we going to do that? Remember, what does it take for us to finally defeat the Japanese? It takes a brand new weapon that we don't tell anybody about. Truman, while he's at the Potsdam conference, learns for the first time that we've successfully tested a nuclear weapon. And he doesn't want that information to get out because he knows how powerful this bomb is, and he doesn't even know if it will work if we drop it. But we do know we have this advantage. We don't want to give that up. But we don't share it with any of our allies. Stalin is still able to find out. He gets a spy to talk to one of Truman's secretaries who tells him about the bomb. He then tells it to Stalin, and Stalin knows about it, doesn't tell Truman that he knows. And so now there's an even bigger source of tension, because think of how many people were killed by the Axis that the Soviet Union sent into battle. The Soviet Union didn't care about their troops, but they still lost a lot of people. They lost the most of any side, except for maybe the Chinese or the Japanese during World War II. And so if they had had an atomic bomb, Stalin thinks maybe we could have ended the war sooner. So now there's another source of tension between them as well. And so what you are going to do for the rest of this assignment is look into Classroom. In this assignment, there is a reading about Yalta and Potsdam, and you're going to decide based on the evidence in the middle column whether that is true or false based on the reading that you've done. Use these notes, use that reading that's there, and complete this portion of the assignment. When you're done, feel free to go back at any point in the video to review any notes that you need to take or anything that you might have missed. Check back for our next video later in the week, so that way you can continue filling out this graphic organizer as the week goes on.